Zigbee, 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 Zigbee. That's actually magnetic holder. Hi, I'm Marta and this is NotEnoughTECH. I definitely have more Zigbee devices than I can fit in my hand, so today I would like to talk about something very useful, which is battery management on all the Zigbee buttons, sensors, and, well, pretty much everything that operates on battery. Now the good thing is it works with Zigbee and all the systems as long as they report the battery percentage. So if you have a problem with these, those are obviously the CR2032 batteries, and you want to monitor them, it's probably not a big deal if you're using a button, because at some point it will stop doing what the button's supposed to do, and you know it's probably time to change the battery. But if you have a temperature sensor like this that reports in the background and you probably forget it does exist, like I do, then you probably want something like this. What you see in front of you, it's a dashboard from Nodle that contains all the Zigbee devices, all battery operated Zigbee devices that report the battery state. Now the system is automated, so you don't have to actually add a single device on your own. It will does its own thing, so no more tedious wiring Zigbee device by Zigbee device and reporting on the state and adding it manually. It does it all automatically forever. All you have to do is just add your Zigbee devices to your Nodle and that's it. You're done. It wouldn't be a NotEnoughTECH video if we didn't talk about problems, and in particular problems with IKEA TradFi. Reading up online, IKEA TradFi does report battery states in a weird way. Now, some of the devices won't actually report the battery until the battery is low, which is also handled by my profile, but IKEA makes it quite inconsistent with battery reporting. So it's very often that the battery state will stuck at some percentage in there for a long time, and they will drop a couple of percentage points lower a week later. Unfortunately, this is not something I can handle myself, because this is related to IKEA software. And it's not a problem with buttons from Xiaomi, which probably are twice as expensive, and that explains it all. Now, because there are no standards yet, although Google, Apple and Amazon are talking about Zigbee standards, the battery reporting systems report a couple of things. So you have your percentage of the battery, you have a voltage, and you have a low battery warning. And all those three are included in the flow, although I'm using the percentage only to trigger the warnings. Apart from this dashboard, there will be an Android notification as well, just like this one. Now the system will check this every day and it will give you a list of devices that are actually landing below the set percentage of the battery levels. So you'll get a name or device ID if the name is in set, you'll get also a battery type if you run through the battery config, and if you click on the button itself, it will take you to Amazon listings where you can purchase additional batteries and sponsor me in the process, because I affiliated this link. So if you don't want affiliations, you have to edit the links. So, I think I've explained everything, so let's get this party started and let's get into the Nodle and I'll explain everything. So let's take a look at the Nodle itself. Let's start with some settings. First of all, there will be a couple of tutorials I'm leaning on. So for mobile notifications, you will be using Perfect Notification System, slightly modified. I'm going to explain the differences, but take a look at this write-up and the video to understand how the notifications are generated. And I use this for most of my tutorials because it's a very simple way of creating custom notifications. In addition to that, I'll be using a credential system, which means all important details like IP addresses, my API keys, etc. are set by credentials, and global variables are available here. Let me just hide this so they wouldn't be visible. And that's basically how I'm going to get the information about my device. So we're going to start explaining things with how the devices are being added. First of all, there is update device list flow in here, and what it does, it basically reads the Zigbee file, the configuration file I was talking about this. So it takes this list and converts this from YAML into a JSON with this script. Now the script, what it does, it just uses a couple of clever tricks to create a array, and this is the array in action. And you can see that device ID and the device friendly name has been put into an array in this form. So I could access and look up all both details for each device, and this is something I'm going to be using because I don't want you to modify anything. The system will take care of the name handling, etc. So that's the script for it, and let's move on. Now, first of all, I'm subscribing with a wildcard to main Zigbee to MQTT topic, which means it's gonna spam the hell out of the node thread. And in order not to interact with every message, I have a switch node to update the Zigbee device name list, and it only updates when there is a payload with battery. And same goes for save battery. I'm only executing this when I have a payload with battery. So whenever a device reports the battery status, I action it. So let's take a look. How am I storing the individual devices? You can see I've created an array of 9 items. I have 9 devices reporting the batteries. So this is how it looks like. First of all, this is the example of one of the devices. This is the device ID from a YAML file. This is the friendly name. You can see this device reports both battery low state and voltage, which I've included. I've also specified the battery type and the battery URL where I can purchase it, and there is a battery percentage and what time it was conducted last. So the battery type actually being assigned manually, so let's jump into that. So whenever I want to specify, or whenever I know what kind of battery I have for the device, all I have to do is just take a friendly name. If you have a friendly name set up, take that, or if you don't have a friendly name set up, you will see that in here you have the ID from YAML file. So take this, enter it here and select the battery from drop down. I only have 2 battery types in my Zigbee devices, but you can have more. And this flow template, if you edit it, full disclosure guys, it contains a list of URLs with affiliate links. So if you don't want those links, just delete them and replace them with your own. It will generate this. The system's clever enough to generate the notifications with batteries that you need for devices, not just all batteries. So you're always going to have a purchase links available in your Android for only the batteries that you need. So that's something. So let's go into the main thing, which is a save battery script. Now it's a little bit complicated, and I'll try to explain it to the best of my knowledge. So we're going to start with the Zigbee battery variable in here. So if there is anything in there, then we're going to load it using the flow. Otherwise, we're just going to create an empty. Now, if we have an information about the battery from the payload, then we're going to start all the process here. So having that information about the battery, having the name from the topic, allows us to actually search this this array with from the YAML file for correct device. So I'm looking up the name, and I'm checking what is the device ID, and then using that device ID to identify my list of devices that are present. Now, if the device isn't present, then I'm going to simply add a new device. But if the device is present, I'm going to update the existing device with correct listing. So that's basically what this does. So to repeat this, I'm looking up the list of my Zigbee devices from YAML file. I'm getting the device ID, and based on the device ID, I search my array for device ID, and then I update relevant entries. And that happens every time I get the payload with a battery. So if the Zigbee device reports and doesn't use this battery, like live whoops, obviously it's not going to be on that list. Now on to the chart. Now I'm slightly cheating in here because it's gonna be something I found on the internet, and this is average bars. If you go to manage palette and then type in average bars, you're gonna get this node to install, and that's what I'm using. Now the problem with average bars is that it uses averages of this, and it wouldn't work for the most part apart from this battery that doesn't degrade really quickly, so I can actually abuse this system. So average bars requires you to have a template node connected because it generates everything for a template. I could modify it to remove the average, but to be honest, I just want it to be as easy as possible, and there is a very clever way of doing it. So just make sure your x-axis is set to message topic, and then this one's set to equalizer. Unless you want the different values, you can delete the values you don't want. That's set. Now every 24 hours I'm simply going to reset this chart. It will take about half a second to complete an update with the new information from that Zigbee battery, because this is what I'm going to process in update chart. But this chart will disappear for half a second and populate it with the fresh values, not with the average values. Now with the Zigbee it will work because those battery values aren't changing very often, so that shouldn't have an impact. And I update this for the new devices every 5 minutes, so if you have a new device it will pop into the chart within 5 minutes, which I think is reasonable. Now up to the update chart. This is very easy. I'm just loading this entire array into a variable, and then I'm creating another array, which means when I return the message, every single object from that array is going to be sent as a separate payload. So that's what this one does. Android notifications are using, as I mentioned, just credentials and a perfect notification system. Now in the settings itself, you can enter the name of the device you want to push the notifications and the value threshold for the battery levels, which means if the battery, in this case it's for troubleshooting, 78%, but reasonable value would be probably 10% or 15%, whatever you think it's best. And the name is just the name of my device, and I have a global auto remote code. Now I'm using auto remote to send that information back to Tasker. Tasker generates the message using auto notification, and I use auto tools to process that JSON file. So those are going to be things that I'm going to need to display the notification, and I'm going to go over the task in a second. I'll finish with this first. So there isn't much really in here. Every day I'm going to check which devices report the battery level low, which means my set threshold, and based on that I'm going to send a list. If none of the devices are reporting low, then obviously I'm not sending any messages. You can look it up on the bar. So what happens in here, I'm getting some information that I need. This is this part, and this part is basically straight away from my perfect notification, and there is obviously a modified body of that notification. So actually I can remove this because I don't need this. And what happens in between is I generate a couple of arrays and objects that I'm going to use to process the information, and for every single object or for every single device I'll check what is the battery and whether the battery level is below my warning or not. If there is below my warning, I'm going to add it to a separate array and see if there is a battery configuration. If I have a battery configuration, I'm going to send that battery configuration into separate variables, which later on I'm going to process. I'm going to check if there are any duplicates in there and remove the duplicates, and then I'm going to create a button for every single battery type I found. So if I have a three battery different types, I'll have 3 buttons with 3 different purchase links. If I have a 1, then it's gonna be just 1. So regardless of how many batteries you're using, you're only gonna get the relevant information. And that's it, really, because once this message is generated and sent via HTTP post, it goes into Tasker. So speaking of Tasker, let's go and open the Tasker. So this is the message. As you can see, for in this example, I have a couple of things. Obviously, there is a short version of a message and there is a long version of message that tells you what devices are running low and what batteries I need. And in this case, I need 2 types of batteries, and I have 2 buttons. If that was a 1 battery, then I would have only single button. So I've mentioned I'm using a perfect auto notification system, which I had to modify slightly. So let's take a look what information I had to modify, and it's going to be very quickly visible what's going to happen. So my notification is set in exactly the same way as for perfect notification. I just made sure I've used up to three buttons. Now you can specify up to 5 buttons, but I've noticed if right now, I know Zhao is working on this, but right now if you specify the 4th button, it gives you some errors, so if the variable isn't populated. So up to 3 buttons right now is okay. Now, what I'm doing differently is I'm adding those button modifiers, button 1, 2, 3, because I'm going to send a code which contains URL, and that URL contains uppercase and lowercase. So I cannot just transform the uppercase, everything to uppercase and use it as my command, because it will distort the URL and I'm gonna lose that information about the URL, because some of the URLs are case sensitive. So the work around is to actually take that command that is being issued by perfect notification and split it. So I created the split in here. So this is my splitter, which is a part of my command, and then I'm going to convert to uppercase only the first bit, so only the command that I'm going to trigger my purchasing behavior on tasking. And then I'm going to put it back together, so the first part is going to be uppercase and the other part is not going to be uppercase. And this is the example how the URL would look like, or how the command would look like. As you can see, after conversion I get a by battery, which is uppercase, and then lowercase I have a URL. So let's get back to my profiles. Now, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because if you're going to have a filter for your command, that filter is going to be also received with your Android notification, which gonna mess up things. Because if you remember, in here I'm passing a filter which is sorry, this is not this one, this is this one. I'm passing a filter which is not 20, and this filter would trigger this command because the message that goes into task contains that command and it contains that URL already, which would be a problem. So that's why I'm converting the command from lowercase to uppercase, so it doesn't trigger on lowercase. I'm converting it to uppercase, and then I can use the uppercase to trigger correct profile. So what I'm doing in here is just flash is no longer needed, so I don't have to do it. And then I'm just using that entire message, splitting it where the URL starts, because it's a very characteristic point to split, and then using Auto Tools Chrome window to open a new window and display the page you need. And that's pretty much everything. That version of the perfect notification, will be available as a separate download with this tutorial. So everything is going to be in the description of this video, a link to an article explaining step by step what to do. So I strongly encourage you to you click on it and follow the instructions there. While the system is designed to work with Zigbee, especially with Zigbee to MQTT, you can transform this to work with any battery operated devices that report the battery statuses over the network. Now, if you require some more information, you'll find a link to an article in the description of this video. This article will also contain the flow for you to download, so you don't have to type it all out yourself. So if you're interested, head back to the description, click on that link, and you'll get all the information you need to get this started. I do not have a posting schedule, guys, so if you want to hear from me each time I post something or make a video, it's best to follow me on social media, because I'm definitely gonna make an announcement there every time an article is ready. You know how YouTube works. Subscribe if you want to, or hit that notification if you don't want to miss the next video. And as usual, guys, I will gonna see you in the next video. So take care. Bye. Apart from this beautiful dashboard, apart from access to this beautiful dashboard, apart from this beautiful dashboard, there is an Android notification system. Every day Android will check on the system. Apart from this beautiful dashboard, you'll also get an Android. No, it's Android! And because it's affiliated with Link and I'm mean, I'm gonna get some extra money if you do.